Hello there guys, last video for this morning from me solely, just me. Hopefully we should have me and Chris later talking about some ancestry work. So this video is Temple of the Otherworld. So I had a request to do a pillar and a smudge for accessing the Otherworld. And the products, as always, will be at the end of the video should you wish to see them, and if not, we'll have the talky part of the video first. So when thinking about Temple of the Otherworld, when accessing the Otherworld, when setting out on one's journey to begin the process of working with one's ancestors, it can be kind of a daunting experience. One of the first books that I bought solely for like Celtic Otherworld work was hugely disappointing to me. The book had kind of like Morrigan down as like an void goddess, and it kind of put me off the entire book, and it put me into a space where I was like, I really don't know what to do with this Otherworld work. And this has been a process which has largely opened up for me thanks to Chris. She has a Otherworld meditation that she has done, and I believe you can purchase it from her, and you can purchase her Ancestor work course if you so wish. And this helped me to kind of get over my apprehensions with working with ancestors in particular. And now, I'd never been hesitant to work with Otherworld energies in terms of death energies, but this kind of took me on a much more specific journey. It took me back to like roots and things, and it started off with, for me largely, working with the shadow ogham for silver birch. And I thought initially I was going to just work a little bit with each shadow ogham and then move on, and no, that did not happen at all whatsoever. What happened was that it may be 6 months, it might be an entire year devoted to the shadow side of silver birch, and it's having a very physical, tangible effect on my life, on me, on like bringing up the things that I am deeply afraid of, because that's what shadow work is kind of, for the large part, like looking at things that you are uncomfortable with about yourself, or with doing in your life and things, or about yourself. And so it brought up this huge wave of different areas of my life that were difficult for me to deal with, and still are, and like I'm still like smack bang in the middle of it, so there's only like certain parts of it that I'm even comfortable talking about. But for me, that's how I began working with the Otherworld in terms of the ancestors and accessing the Otherworld. It may well be that silver birch is a part of the essence of who I am in terms of having like a soul tree. I'm pretty sure, and I've had members of tribe be like, yeah, we're pretty sure that silver birch is basically part of your soul tree, basically. And there's been kind of like a lot of divinational messages to do with trees, and to do with like Yggdrasil, like the world tree, and the connectivity between trees as part of like an spiritual archetype for ecosystem, for the spirit world and spirituality in the universe, and the world being an ecosystem, which is something I've talked about quite a bit on the blog. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that sort of thing here, there and everywhere, but I may be looking at starting either a Patreon or a series, like something along those lines, maybe Gumroad, and starting up little sort of bits of information that people can purchase regularly or whatever, and talk about archetypes and going into bits and pieces in depth as kind of like lesson plans, mainly because I've been doing the videos for, you know, for basically nothing for 5 or 6 years, is it now? And whilst I still will happily make free content, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I really want to be self-sufficient, and this is one of my shadows, is that I really want to get to a place where I'm self-sufficient financially, completely and utterly self-sufficient. So just to see if anyone's interested in that sort of thing. Back on point. So working with the Otherworld kind of meant connecting to a part of my energy that was this soul tree. And that soul tree, for me, being silver birch, kind of took me down into the underworld, took me back down. And Chris's meditation really helped me, and she and I have been working with like the things that I've been receiving in terms of divination and things that she sees within divination, and then kind of reaching out from that point. And like the coffee has a huge part to play in it, as people are very probably aware now. I may make a video just showing you guys how I make the coffee, because I've had loads of questions about it, and I swear it's not really an elongated process for me making coffee. I will show you what it looks like so people will believe me. Don't think people believe me. Either that, or I'm going to start selling spiritual coffee. That would be interesting. I'm probably not going to do that because it requires all kind of legal hoo-ha to sell food and drink. So the divination process was a big part of opening the temple to the Otherworld for me. And this has been about the underworld cavern, crossing over the lake, going into the water, going down through roots, and there's been a lot of that kind of energy to this, like going down into the dirt, into the ground, into the earth, and then like beneath all of that. And it's all very fluxy because it's not like down and there it is. I had all these messages around Beltane, and I swear it's the gods like giggling at me, because they're like, yes, but you go sideways. And then I was like, oh, like S-I-D-H-E ways? Okay. Like, is it really sideways? Like, because there is, you know, theories of multiple dimensions or multiple realities being side by side rather than up and down. Like, up and down might be more of a perhaps Christocentric way of looking at different realms of existence. If you think about Yggdrasil in terms of the Nordic tradition being a cosmic tree that connects different realms, that can be sideways, like branching off, or down along roots. It's just a matter of perspective, I suppose. So the point being, though, is there was kind of like a movement and like a shift, and it's kind of like a perception shift, and then it's been like a strong meditation thing. And I've kind of always felt like I was kind of half in, half out anyway, because of natural abilities. I've seen spirits as long as I can remember, for example. And there's always been spirit activities around me, mostly okay, like some scary, particularly when I was young in a not very pleasant environment. In recent times it's mainly just been fairly amusing for the most part. There's an older woman who moves through here and assists me with reminding me I haven't cleaned my teeth, or makes makeup suggestions and things roll across the desk and stuff. It's harmless, but definitely unusual. And so for me it wasn't like a huge jump in terms of being able to reach the spirit realm, the other world, because that's something I could do quite naturally, if you like. I'd always been able to visualize really strongly. So for me, I think it was more about letting go of my own personal barriers that I'd put up in place, because for me, because I had a physical separation from most of my immediate blood family, relatives maybe is a better term, I kind of had this disconnect from my spirit family, because there was obviously this wound there that for the most part is really difficult to get past, really difficult to heal, and like there's all kinds of healing still going on within me. There's a process when, you know, there are things that come churning up from growing up in an environment which was awful, and both parents did not care for you or love you the way they should have, and it was all kinds of crazy abuse, and you get to the point where you're like, they're never gonna be a real family, and then you do these weird shadow things where you're trying to replace them with people, and that doesn't work out because you're looking at the same sort of patterns and you're repeating all the same sort of nonsense over again, and it's not healthy for you. And then you get to the point where like, well, your ancestors really want to talk to you, and you kind of need to help them and they need to help you, and there needs to be a healing process both ways, and you need to go into this otherworld temple cabin around the bonfire and talk with them, and you're like, how do you even connect when you don't know what they look like? You've got no way of doing that. Like, what most people do is set up an altar and have like photographs on there, and I have no idea, and in the end it just ended up being a more abstract way around it. It ended up being meditation and trusting what was being felt and saw and seen, and I had moments of complete affirmation working with the process of creating a otherworldly temple, because I would get messages which then had symbols, and then the symbols I would be like, oh, I kind of remember them from my research but not really, and then I go look it up and then, oh, that is so on the nose, it's unreal. That kind of abstract spiritual moment, which I can't go into specifics without being deeply personal, and I'm not ready to, and I may never be ready to share that part of the working. So I thought I would share this, talk a little bit about this, because I think a lot of us come to the very beginnings of working with ancestors for whatever reason, and I think it's probably one of those years where a lot of us may be feeling the need to, for a number of reasons. Like, last year was a year of death, and I've said this before, and because last year was a year of death, this year's kind of felt like an otherworld, underworld year to me. It's kind of been a year where I have felt the presence of gods which I don't particularly work with, if at all. So I've had Hades over and over and over again, as people are probably aware, but there's also been Persephone energies here and there, and then recently, and this will be in another video which is not going to be today because that's also working with a set for somebody else, Demeter, and she's been coming up quite a bit with regards to, you know, dirt on the face and mourning and things of that nature. So it's been interesting to me, because the Greek gods in particular are not energies of gods that I work with implicitly. I can reach out and touch energies of different gods as kind of a gift from the Morrigan. It's kind of part of why I create items for other people, and I'm happy to do so because I can channel and connect that way perfectly easily. I can see, basically, is the way that she puts it. Like, you can see, and you can see for other people if you need to, and feel and touch and taste, but it's primarily seeing is the, and then speaking is part of it. So I really kind of wanted just to kind of touch on like the beginning steps of opening up to otherworld journeying, because I don't think it's something that a lot of people talk about. I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, ancestry work, honouring your ancestors, lighting a candle, creating a space for them, like an altar for them. And for me, like, I don't have photographs and I can't get photographs, and that's never going to be a thing. And kind of like that physical block again created like this block within me that stopped me from doing and connecting and meditating and reaching out to my mothers and my mother's mothers. And because that's how a lot of people approach it, I don't think we talk enough about like, well, a lot of it is just kind of getting your head right and your energy right and reaching out. And it doesn't have to be about a physical, tangible space or going to a gravestone or anything like that. Because the people who have chosen in their afterlife or spirit life or whatever you want to call it to be there for the living, which I honestly at this point believe is a choice that these women have, largely women, almost completely women in my ancestor line anyway, have made to reach out and connect to us and to create that two-way connection. And they may well need healing as much as we do, and we therefore kind of become a conduit for them, like passing on what they know, even if we're kind of like physically disconnected from the ancestors in terms of like our immediate family, for whatever reason that might be. So I think like creating a Otherworld temple can be as simple as intent and creating a spiritual place. You can create a physical location. I created something physical which I won't go into, which has nothing to do with it being a altar per se, not in the way that you would think of one as perhaps. And there's been a lot of themes of blood and dirt and ash and that kind of energy to something. And like working with those principles and roots and kind of journeying down the roots and things. So I thought I would kind of like make those as suggestions to like, they're kind of like key words, like key feelings as kind of a start place for people if they're people who are looking at working in the other world. I also have created items as well as worked with other people's items. So I made a video, which should probably go up first, for the Kavulta, and I worked a little bit with their energy, which was different to working with my energies, and I think that that kind of helps to open different doors in a way. The Kavulta necromancy incense was very much about just pure offering, whereas when I was creating items it was about creating a temple. So that was kind of like the difference there. That was kind of like a gift versus me doing the work process. So the items were for someone else, for Chris in fact. She said it was okay to say who they were for. So I will show you them and we'll talk about the energetic process with the temple of the smudge particularly. So this is the pillar, and the pillar was it started off life as a grey, like a much darker grey, and it has made itself grey blue. It wanted to be grey blue, and it's not me putting blue in the wax. This is just how it came, because I put a whole ton of grey in there and it came out like Temple of the Otherworld. It has like a greeny moss feel to it, and this is very in keeping with Chris's visualizations, so it kind of keyed into her energy really well and it kind of has that underworld cave feel to it that we kind of touched on earlier in the video. Now the smudge, oh, it smells so good if I do say so myself. And the smudge will be I keep moving it and it keeps rolling. Woo! Don't all roll out, please. Okay, so the smudge will be re-available. I will make the smudge available again afterwards, and Chris said it was fine too. Oh, Okay, so when we were building an energetic temple for the smudge, which is what the smudges are, it's about creating an energetic shift to create an energetic temple and rebuild from center up, energy-wise. So it was about mediumship, telepathy, realization of the spirit world, building a bridge, crossing the realms, joining the worlds, so the other world and this world together, caves, roots, water and earth, the entrance to the underworld, mouth, cavern, bridge, tendrils of roots down into the other world. So it kind of has like this earthy, watery smell, and it's really, I don't know how I managed it. Like well, I do, but you know when you smell something, you're like, how do I do these things sometimes? Because it smells somewhere between earth and water. And that's really odd to me in a way, but I knew exactly what I wanted to go into it. I also had spirits like knock something off the shelf again to go into this one. And it's just, it smells so good, if I do say myself. I love it. And it's a completely different energy to anything that I've got, bought or tried. And I wanted it to be a completely different energy to anything I had bought, tried or made before, because it's very unique and very special. There is a layer in it which is to do with protection, and it's what I described to Chris as a back door. So the smudge in this energy, and with all the death ones actually, has a back door, and by that it means it's a level of protectiveness that means you can get out of that space if you need to. You can ground off and close the door, and I think that's very important sometimes with spirit work, just in case. Most people who are doing that kind of in-depth spirit work probably already have those safeguards in place, have their wards in place, have already grounded, rooted and connected and have their guards up and things, but I kind of always want to put that in just in case. Safety net, Virgo thing. The energies otherwise are very much about the connectivity with Otherworld. They're like creating a energetic bridge between this world and the other world, and like elevating the energies in order to make the two people, the two spirits, the two energies kind of vibrate together and then vibrate on the same level. So it's kind of like sinking into the other world. Sinking down here, down to my height, and getting your fingers down in the dirt and becoming with the other world. And there's kind of like this sinking, merging down through the waters that aren't really waters, and they're kind of like timeless caverns into the space of the other world. It's also like a bridge, but the bridge is kind of like an internal process as opposed to like I am walking across a bridge, and it's more of an internal rebirthing process to readjust oneself. It's like going sideways, like I talked about earlier, and it's kind of like becoming a little bit other and accessing that part of oneself which already is a little bit other in order to see with one's other eyes. That came from somewhere else. To see with one's other's eyes. That's interesting. I like it. To pierce the veil, to look beyond, to access the temple to the other world, to step through in whichever direction, and to feel and vibrate and speak and access things which are on a spirit level, on a spirit vibration, and are other. So there you go. There's an element of knowledge and wisdom here too. There is a accessing of ancestral memory, very much so. An honour and placing honour and being honourable and humble and earthy in order to revere what we don't fully understand. That's a lot of about what it is. I think there is an element of going into the places with reverence and respect and listening. So that's it for this particular video. I hope you liked it. Many blessings.